You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
What if I told you that your laptop might be secretly negotiating its own salary while you sleep?
Or that your favorite video streaming platform is quietly doing the math to underwrite your next mortgage.
Right. I mean, it sounds like a completely surreal science fiction pitch, the kind of thing you just brush off as absurd. But it is actually happening right in front of us.
Yeah, it really is.
Think of me as your tech-savvy mate, the vocal technologist, here to help you unpack the complex mechanics of the modern web. We are going to look under the hood of three massive colliding forces.
And these forces are, well, they're completely rewiring things.
Exactly. First, autonomous AI acting as independent financial agents. Second, the desperate struggle to make crypto completely invisible to normal people. And third, raw global geopolitics just completely hijacking market prices.
It is a massive collision of technologies and real-world systems. We are watching the underlying infrastructure of the internet fundamentally rewire itself. And the wild part is the primary catalyst is not human behavior at all.
Which is the perfect place to start, I reckon. We're entering this machine-to-machine economy, and the user base, adopting blockchain technology faster than anyone else, consists entirely of code.
Yeah, it is all bots and agents.
Let us pull apart what is happening with Coinbase and their bizarre MCP launch. Because for anyone listening who is not deep in the developer trenches, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol.
Right, which is essentially a standardized way for AI models to securely connect to external data and tools.
So Bazaar is a marketplace built specifically for these AI agents. They can autonomously search for external application programming interfaces, evaluate the pricing of those tools, and then execute payments in seconds using this thing called the BY402 payment protocol.
The BY402 protocol is just a brilliant evolution. I mean, you know the 404 error code, right?
Oh yeah, page not found, the classic.
Exactly. Well, in the early days of the web, the architects proposed the 402 status code for payment required. They were hoping humans would use it for microtransactions.
Right, which obviously never took off because humans absolutely hate paying tiny fractions of a cent for every single article they read.
Spot on. The friction is just too high for us. But machines, they do not care. The BY402 protocol revives that exact standard specifically for AI agents to instantly pay each other for computational resources.
Look, it makes complete sense. If an AI needs, say, a weather data set to finish a task, it should not have to wait for a human to awkwardly type in a credit card number.
Exactly. But speaking of credit cards, the legacy financial system is actually trying to wrap its arms around this whole thing.
Oh, they definitely are. Visa executives have actually outlined a structure where credit cards act as the front-end interface for these AI agents, while stablecoins handle the back-end settlement.
And the underlying logic there is purely about risk management. Traditional financial institutions understand that you cannot just, hand an AI direct access to a bank account with unlimited funds.
Yeah, that sounds like a very quick way to lose everything.
Precisely. So the credit card provides the necessary trust boundary and strict spending limits. But the problem is, the legacy banking system takes days to settle transactions.
Which is completely useless for a machine operating in milliseconds.
Right. That is why the stablecoin sits on the back end. It provides the instant, programmable settlement that a machine requires, while the credit card gives you that human compliance layer.
So the card is the leash, and the stablecoin is the engine. I like that. But these agents are doing way more than just buying weather data. Look at that hackathon hosted by the investment firm Paradigm.
Oh, that was full on. The challenge was to build complex market-making strategies.
And the winner did not just sit there typing out brilliant sequential logic. They deployed an AI swarm using parallel Claude code agents.
The method the swarm used is what makes this a profound shift. I mean, a human quantitative analyst will formulate a hypothesis, right? They write the code, test it against historical data, and adjust. It is a very linear process.
But the AI swarm just threw out everything we know about human market logic.
Completely threw it out. It ran parallel computational explorations, testing thousands of variables and risk-weighted formulas simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah, it generated over 1,000 different strategy variants from scratch, and it mathematically arrived at an optimal trading strategy that just completely outperformed the human coders.
It is a level of brute force computational efficiency that humans structurally cannot replicate.
Yeah.
It is like hiring an aggressively efficient personal assistant who never sleeps and works a million times faster than you.
Spot on. But that requires immense computing power, which brings us to the hardware side of this equation.
Right, because giant server farms running NVIDIA chips use massive amounts of electricity, which makes AI inference very expensive.
Yeah, but there's a project called Darkbloom that is attacking this exact infrastructure bottleneck. They route that AI inference to idle Apple Silicon Macs all around the world.
Which is just an incredibly elegant solution to a massive physical constraint. I mean, Apple M-series chips are famously power efficient. They sip electricity compared to traditional server graphics processing units.
Exactly. By turning millions of idle consumer laptops into a decentralized inference grid, Darkbloom matches the processing power of expensive servers at a fraction of the physical power cost.
And because their overhead is so low, they're able to price their output tokens at half the standard industry rate, which is massive.
It really is. And all of this machine activity needs a place to settle, which explains why we are seeing such massive on-chain impacts.
Yeah, 90,000 AI agents have registered identities on the Ethereum network alone. I really want to unpack the mechanics of what this actually does to the network.
It is a fundamental shift in the token economics.
Right, because every time a transaction occurs on Ethereum, a tiny fraction of the token is burned as a base network fee. So with 90,000 agents firing off high-frequency transactions 24 hours a day.
The network is destroying tokens faster than it mints them. The technical term is a structural supply shock.
Which is wild. Human traders might be terrified of global markets and selling off their portfolios, but the AI agents are completely immune to fear or greed.
They do not care about the news. They are just churning away in the background, consuming block space to execute their tasks. This machine behavior is driving the net issuance of the token negative.
Pushing exchange reserves to historic lows, entirely independent of human sentiment.
Yeah, the bots do not care about human emotion at all. And they certainly do not care about clunky user interfaces.
Oh, but humans absolutely despise friction. Which leads us directly to our second massive force, the human adoption problem.
It is the biggest hurdle.
We have this incredibly sophisticated back-end technology, but the front-end experience for the average person is still a total nightmare of passwords and technical jargon.
The disconnect between what developers are building and what regular people actually want to use is just staggering. The technology simply has to fade into the background.
Friction is an understatement, mate. Let us look at a perfect real-world example. There was a testnet project that decided to completely hide seed phrases and gas fees from the users.
They extracted all the complex crypto elements away.
Exactly. And they hit a 79% activation rate, which vastly outperforms the industry average that usually hovers around a miserable 20%.
The data proves it. When you remove the technical burden, adoption skyrockets. Yet a significant portion of the developer community flat out refuses to implement these solutions.
Which brings up account abstraction. Let us explain what is actually being abstracted here. In traditional crypto, your account is tied to a rigid private key.
Right, and if you lose the key, your funds are gone forever.
Yep. But account extraction turns your wallet into a programmable smart contract. It means you can use Face ID to log in, or you can have the application automatically pay your transaction fees in regular digital dollars instead of forcing you to buy a volatile network token just to pay for gas.
It makes it feel like a normal app.
But developers resist it. They want the credibility of showing visible smart contract addresses. It is totally an ego thing. It is like car manufacturers demanding you understand the mechanics of internal combustion before you are allowed to drive down to the shops. Because apparently that is where we are now.
It is a stubbornness that effectively caps their market at the existing handful of technical power users. But contrast that with how Tether is addressing the market.
Oh yeah, they're taking a completely different approach.
They are launching a self-custodial wallet with built-in gas abstraction. They understand their user base of hundreds of millions of people in emerging markets.
Because those users just want to send money. They do not want to become network engineers to buy a coffee. With Tether offering this, the transaction fees are simply deducted from the transferred asset.
It makes the entire user experience mirror a traditional banking app like PayPal or Venmo.
And speaking of traditional banking functions, the creator economy is forcing a massive restructuring of cross-border payments. YouTube activated PYUSD payouts for their creators.
PYUSD being PayPal USD, which is a stablecoin.
Right. Let's get into why that is so disruptive to traditional finance. If a video creator sitting in Jakarta earns $1,000 from their audience, the legacy system relies on correspondent banking.
Which is incredibly slow and expensive.
Yeah, exactly. The money has to bounce from an American bank to an intermediary clearinghouse and finally to an Indonesian bank. At every single hop, an institution takes a fee and then they get hit with terrible foreign exchange spreads.
So the creator ends up losing roughly 30% of their revenue and waits a week for settlement.
But a stablecoin payout completely bypasses that entire legacy architecture. The value transfers instantly peer-to-peer over the blockchain, cutting out the intermediary hops and preserving the creator revenue.
And it makes YouTube a de facto neobank. Think about it. Why would a creator move their money out of the platform if they can just hold it there in stablecoins?
But hang on, there's still a massive bottleneck here. The off-ramp into traditional finance is broken. You can move $1 million in stablecoins across the globe in 3 seconds. But if you want to withdraw that into local currency through a traditional Western brokerage like Fidelity,
It can sometimes take 8 days to clear the funds. The stablecoins have solved the transfer of value, but the bridge back to legacy banking rails remains glued to ancient infrastructure.
right. However, the solution might bypass Western banking entirely. The chief executive officer of Circle is pushing for an offshore yuan stablecoin.
This is a direct play to globalize the currency of China without the heavy infrastructure overhead of a central bank digital currency.
It completely sidesteps the traditional Western correspondent banking system we were just talking about.
Yeah, and if we connect this back to YouTube acting as a neobank, there is a harsh reality in traditional financial tech. 76% of traditional neobanks are actually unprofitable on interchange fees alone.
Oh, wow, really? 76%.
Yes, the business model of simply moving money around just does not generate enough revenue. To survive, a bank has to lend money.
Right, I see where this is going. The entities best positioned to lend money are the ones who own the real-time cash flow data.
Precisely. A traditional bank only sees your monthly deposit, but platforms like YouTube, they know exactly how much a creator earns minute by minute.
They understand the engagement metrics, the audience retention, all the future earning potential.
Yeah, they possess infinitely better data to underwrite credit than a legacy bank ever could. When you combine that proprietary data with frictionless stablecoin payment rails, the entire concept of consumer banking is completely redefined.
The tech disappears, the platforms become the banks, and the money moves instantly. But here is where it gets properly weird. Once you remove all the friction of moving capital, that money instantly flows toward the highest stakes events on the planet.
It always finds the action.
The technology is fading into the background, but it is actively amplifying real-world geopolitical chaos.
This brings us to the concept of reflexivity, particularly in the realm of prediction markets.
Let us look at Polymarket. It is this massive prediction platform where people place financial bets on real-world outcomes. It has become so prominent that these odds are now being integrated directly into Google News feeds.
Sitting right alongside traditional journalism from major media outlets.
We are moving from trusting editorial boards to trusting financial skin in the game.
But the sheer scale of the capital involved creates a profound feedback loop. These prediction markets are becoming what researchers call hyperstition machines.
Hyperstition, that is a heavy word.
It is a concept where an idea or belief gathers enough momentum that it actually brings itself into reality. The markets manufacture outcomes rather than just predict them.
Okay, that is wild.
A Harvard study investigated this and found $143 million in anomalous profit across suspicious wallets tied to geopolitical events. We are talking about military personnel being arrested for placing bets on classified strike timings before they happen.
Wait, let me make sure I'm grasping the full weight of this reflexivity concept. Are you telling me that a wealthy entity can bet heavily on a specific political outcome, which violently swings the odds on the platform?
Yes.
Which then causes the traditional media to write headlines about the changing momentum.
Exactly.
And those headlines then influence actual public perception
Yeah.
and cause the event to happen.
Oh.
Which, yeah, is exactly as terrifying as it sounds.
That is the exact mechanism. The market does not just passively reflect reality. The capital actively bends reality.
That is just full on. But technically speaking, prediction markets struggled for a long time to handle this kind of volume. We need to unpack why the old mechanisms failed.
Yeah, early prediction markets relied on automated market makers, or AMMs.
Think of an AMM like a vending machine. It holds two assets, right?
Yeah.
And it uses a mathematical rule called the constant product formula to balance them.
Exactly. So as people buy one token, the vending machine automatically raises its price based strictly on what is left in the inventory.
Which works beautifully for regular asset trading where prices fluctuate on a curve. But an AMM structurally fails in a prediction market because the outcomes are entirely binary. They resolve to exactly 0 or exactly 1.
Spot on. If a specific geopolitical event does not happen, The token representing that outcome drops to absolute zero.
And because the vending machine is blindly following its mathematical formula, it keeps buying the losing token all the way down to zero. The people who provided liquidity to the pool suffer a guaranteed structural wipeout.
They are left holding completely worthless tokens while the winners drain all the valuable assets, which forces platforms like Polymarket to abandon the AMM model entirely.
They had to move to a central limit order book instead.
Yeah, which is the traditional way stock markets operate. It matches distinct buyers and distinct sellers directly with each other, meaning the exchange itself takes zero inventory risk.
It just shows how raw, global macro realities are completely overriding protocol tech. We spend so much time obsessed with software updates and mathematical formulas, but prices are driven by pure geopolitics.
Absolutely. Look at Bitcoin. It experienced a massive run and then sharply pulled back.
And it did not pull back because of a software bug. It pulled back entirely due to the collapse of United States and Iran ceasefire talks and the subsequent naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
Right, that blockade spiked oil prices, which reignited inflation fears globally, which immediately forced capital out of risk assets.
The market has fundamentally matured. The prices are reacting to military blockades and inflation data, just like traditional commodities.
And despite all this geopolitical chaos, the institutional momentum is completely undeterred. Nomura surveyed institutions managing over $60 billion, and they found that 80% of those institutions plan to allocate capital to crypto. 80%.
That is a staggering figure. We are seeing traditional banking heavyweights move far beyond just holding assets on a balance sheet. Morgan Stanley is actively expanding into tokenized money market funds.
The traditional financial world is building permanent, unshakable infrastructure.
And as this integration deepens, it inevitably collides with politics. Let's just look at the raw data of where capital is flowing politically, purely as an objective measure of industry maturity.
The data points are very clear.
You have the Trump family launching the WLFI token, which has obviously drawn heavy scrutiny over alleged conflicts of interest. Then on the other side of the aisle, you have Senator Elizabeth Warren slamming the X Money platform over its rumored crypto features, demanding answers directly from Elon Musk.
And then you have the Solana Institute-backed super PAC spending $8 million against a crypto skeptic in the Ohio Senate race.
When you look at those data points impartially, the pattern is undeniable. The technology is no longer an isolated internet experiment. It has evolved into a highly capitalized political lobby.
It is a core issue being debated by presidential families and powerful senators. The industry is playing the exact same high-stakes influence game as big pharma or the energy sector.
It is incredible to step back and look at the whole picture. We started this conversation talking about lines of code shopping for application programming interfaces, and we ended up discussing naval blockades and Senate races.
It is a complex web, but the central thesis is proven. The underlying architecture of money and information is being entirely rewritten, largely without the average person even noticing.
Let us pull all these threads together for you. We have AI agents adopting blockchain because it is the only financial environment native to their programming. We have developers slowly realizing that hiding the complex plumbing through account abstraction is the only way to get normal humans to use it.
We see stablecoins turning social media platforms into the new underwriting neobanks.
And we have prediction markets commanding so much capital that their reflexivity actually influences the geopolitical events they are meant to be betting on.
All while traditional institutions and politicians scramble to control the narrative.
And that leads me to a final thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. If AI swarms become the primary drivers of on-chain volume, and stablecoins quietly replace traditional banking rails entirely behind the scenes, do human interfaces even matter in the long run? Or are we just building the invisible infrastructure for a machine-to-machine economy where we humans are merely passive beneficiaries of the math? Let that marinate. I am the Vocal Technologist. Catch you next time.
Spoken Tech for your ears.